Anger burns hot and loud. Regret is quiet. It sits with you at night. It follows you into the kitchen in the morning. It waits in the silence after everyone else has gone home. I trusted people who did not deserve it, not strangers, not criminals, not villains from some dramatic story. I am talking about people I shared meals with, people I defended when others questioned them, people I would have sworn on my children's lives would never hurt me. And the worst part? The signs were there. They were small, almost polite, easy to ignore. A story that didn't quite match, a promise that shifted slightly, a feeling in my stomach that I pushed down because trusting felt better than questioning. If you are over 40, this matters more than you think, because the older you get, the more expensive your mistakes become. At 25, you can recover. At 45, it costs you years. At 65, it costs you peace. At 80, it costs you time you will never get back. I am not telling you this to make you suspicious of everyone in your life. I am telling you this because I wasted years trusting feelings instead of watching patterns. If even a small part of you wonders whether you have ignored something important, stay with me. And if you believe experience still has something to teach you, leave a quiet one below. Not for me, for yourself. I lived through almost a century. That sentence sounds impressive when someone else says it. From the inside, it just feels long. Long enough to see people at their best. Long enough to see them unravel. For 33 years, I was a mail carrier, not a therapist, not a judge, not a priest, just the man who walked up to your door 6 days a week and left something in your box. That made me invisible, and when people think you are invisible, they stop performing. They argue on the porch. They sign legal papers with shaking hands. They avoid eye contact when certain envelopes arrive. They pretend nothing is wrong while their mailbox tells a different story. I watched people longer than they watched themselves. I saw patterns repeat across neighborhoods, across decades, across different faces with the same endings. Marriages that looked perfect from the street, partnerships that seemed unbreakable, families that smiled for photos and quietly fractured behind closed doors. I am not speaking from books. I am speaking from observation, from footsteps on concrete, from letters delivered in silence. Experience does not make me smarter than you. It just means I have seen what denial looks like over and over again. For 33 years, I delivered more than mail. I delivered patterns. I watched couples wave to neighbors, arms linked, laughter easy. From the sidewalk, they looked steady. But weeks later, I would carry certified letters addressed to attorneys, papers folded neatly, lives unfolding quietly. Friendly neighbors borrowed sugar and smiled over fences. Then the envelopes changed. Late notices, final warnings, financial strain hidden behind trimmed lawns and polite conversation. Perfect families posed for holiday photos, matching outfits, bright smiles. Yet over time, the tone of their mail shifted. Separate bank statements, different last names, court documents that arrived in thick official envelopes. Betrayal is never sudden. It feels sudden to the person who refuses to see it. But in truth, it is erosion, slow, repetitive, almost gentle at first. A small lie, a dismissed concern, a pattern of behavior explained away as just stress or a rough phase. Patterns repeat, before outcomes explode. And here's what unsettles most people. The signs are rarely dramatic. They are ordinary. So ordinary that you talk yourself out of noticing them. If something in your life feels slightly off, ask yourself, has it happened before? Because erosion never starts with collapse. It starts with repetition. 22 years is long enough to build a life around someone, long enough to memorize their habits, their voice in the dark, the way they clear their throat before speaking. I believed I knew him. For 10 of those years, there was a post office box I never questioned. He said it was for business. I delivered mail for a living. I understood privacy. I told myself it was normal. The moment I found out, there was no dramatic music. Just fluorescent lights humming above me in a quiet post office hallway. The air smelled like paper and dust. My hand felt cold against the metal door. Inside were letters, years of them. I remember staring at the floor tiles, unable to move. Shock is not loud. It is hollow. It empties you before it hurts you. And here is the truth that took me even longer to admit. We do not ignore signs because we are foolish. We ignore them because we are afraid of being wrong, afraid of losing what we built, afraid of starting over when we no longer feel young. Sometimes the hardest part is not discovering betrayal. It is accepting that we saw it coming and chose comfort over clarity. 22 years is long enough to build a life around someone, long enough to believe you know every habit, every silence, every excuse. For 10 of those years, there was a post office box I never questioned. She called it private correspondence. I told myself trust meant not prying. I delivered mail for a living. I understood boundaries, so I convinced myself that not asking was a sign of maturity. The day I opened that box, there was no shouting, no dramatic confrontation, just fluorescent lights humming above me, cold metal under my fingers, a stack of letters that stretched back further than I wanted to count. Shock is not loud. It is hollow. It empties you before it breaks you, and here is the part that took me years to admit. I had seen the signs. We do not ignore warning signs because we are stupid. We ignore them because we are afraid of being wrong, afraid of tearing down a life we invested decades building, afraid of starting over when time feels short. Sometimes we already know the truth. We just choose comfort over courage. Tell me honestly, have you ever sensed something wasn't right, but stayed quiet anyway? If you believe fear, not foolishness, is why we ignore red flags, leave a 3 in the comments. Here is the hard truth I wish someone had told me at 50. Trust should be earned slowly, lost quickly. But most of us do the opposite. We give trust fast because someone makes us feel understood, because they speak gently, because they remember our birthday, because being chosen feels good. We hand over access to our time, our finances, our future based on emotion, and then, when the evidence begins to shift, we hold on too long. A missed explanation, a repeated inconsistency, a pattern that does not match the promise. Instead of tightening trust, we widen it. Instead of asking questions, we defend them. We confuse intensity with integrity. Feelings are powerful, but feelings are not evidence. Patterns are evidence. Anyone can perform well once. Anyone can apologize beautifully. Anyone can create a moment. But patterns require consistency. And consistency reveals character. If someone respects you occasionally, that is a moment. If someone respects you repeatedly, that is a pattern. I learned this too late. You are not supposed to trust word first. You are supposed to trust repeated behavior. And if you remember nothing else from what I say today, remember this: you are trusting feelings, not patterns. I stayed 8 more years after I knew, not because I believed anymore, but because leaving felt heavier than staying. At that age, you start calculating what you can endure instead of what you deserve. One evening, my daughter looked at me and said something I will never forget. "I've been waiting for you to see it since I was 12. 12. Children notice before adults admit. They feel the tension in the room. They hear the pauses between words. They see what we explain away. I thought I was protecting her by keeping the peace. In truth, she was waiting for me to protect myself. If this sounds familiar, ask yourself, who has been quietly waiting for you to see what they already see? If you believe children often see the truth before we do, leave a 7 in the comments. At 97, I have learned something simple and sharp. You do not have years to waste. When you are young, you can afford denial. You can afford to give someone the benefit of the doubt again and again. But time does not wait for you to feel ready. It moves whether you face the truth or not. Watch what they do. Words are easy. Apologies are easy. Promises are easy. What is not easy is consistency. Character is not proven in moments. It is revealed in patterns. Trust patterns. If someone respects you once, that is kindness. If they respect you repeatedly, that is character. Your peace in the years ahead will depend less on what you hope is true and more on what you are willing to see clearly. Time will pass either way. Choose clarity before it does.